welcome to our next week of BFA exhibitions. We got one more left, and thank you for tuning in. This is going to turn it over to our first student to introduce herself.
Hi, my name's Cleo Bonnell, and this is my thesis. It is titled Nothing to Worry About. This show is a series of 5 acrylic paintings, all centered around the idea of anxiety and how it presents itself in our lives and how it has evolved from instinct to hindrance. This idea originally came from my fascination with the origin of anxiety and how it has evolved from an instinct that once kept us safe and alive when we were under any sort of threat, but has now, in an attempt to adapt to how we currently live and our society, has begun to show up in unneeded ways. It was once useful when we had to fight to adapt and survive, but in our current day, having a heart rate of 120 BPM while ordering coffee is not necessary. Anxiety is a pretty common experience, so I don't feel like I have to explain it to any of you. But for the purposes of my show, I was interested in portraying these emotions in a less angsty way, almost. Many visual portrayals of anxiety feel very heavy, and I wanted to kind of toe the line in between ominous and comforting. So I morphed these emotions into imagined, more animalistic beings that insert themselves into everyday scenes. I'm very interested in the dichotomy of imagined things with a more realistically rendered environment and how those would communicate with each other within one composition and what that could evoke from a viewer. These creatures we have here are designed to allow you your own interpretation and of their intention and connect your own fears and anxieties so they become a way to take that emotion kind of out of yourself and allow you to see it for what it is, which is just an instinct desperately trying to protect you. In designing these creatures, it was important for me to not resist the cute. There was, of course, fears of my art not being seen as professional if it was rendered in a more playful and cute way, but to make sure these creatures were interpreted as not inherently threatening, this felt much more appropriate. If I had made them like hulking demons, people would leave with a very different interpretation. Anyway, I will quickly go through and tell you a little bit more about each piece. Start over here. This piece is titled Headspace. I personally am someone who's impacted a lot by my surroundings and environment, specifically my bedroom. So I wanted to explore this relation between clutter and mess and an uptick of anxiety. I really enjoy the exploration of being trapped in your space and therefore your own head, and how it directly impacts your mental state and your ability to function. And this is accompanied with a monster under the bed, which represents emotions that are looming or kind of being shoved under. Moving this way. This piece is titled, What Am I So Worried About? This was sort of the catalyst for my entire body of work. It's about the effect of media on anxiety and the struggle to adapt and cope with the sheer amount of information and news that we have access to. Our brains are just not meant to know as much as we can know in this current day and age. So this effectively allows the brain to come up with so many more things to worry about and negative things to be exposed to, which can really stress you out. Surprise, surprise. Here you can see through news articles that a sort of cat monster is Godzilla-ing a city outside, but it's also integrated with lists and clutter of many, many other things to worry about. Okay. This piece is titled Gut Response. It's an exploration of the body's physical reaction to anxiety, whether it's like a raised heart rate, sweating, headache, or nausea. The ways the body can physically respond to anxiety is incredibly interesting to me. In problems that with problems that only exist in your head when they become physical reactions. That's fascinating. But Then with the inclusion of these two wolfish creatures, I wanted to evoke more of a sense of comfort and companionship. Okay. And then, can I get both of them in shot, actually? Okay. These two pieces are very similar, and I wanted to separate my work between internal and external spaces. So these are both more of an anticipation of the unknown rather than a specific aspect or response to anxiety. This painting specifically was inspired by more quiet anxiety that someone carries around in potentially social spaces. This anticipation of something going wrong or literally waiting for something, in this case the bus. And this is also an example of a more camaraderie relationship between figure and creature. They don't pose a literal threat, they're just kind of hanging out. And then finally, as I said before, this piece is centered around a very similar idea of the unknown and anticipation. This one in a slightly more threatening way. Here, I just wanted the creature to feel imposing, but with room to feel unsure of its relation to the figure. But yeah, I hope you all enjoy. Thank you. Is it on? Oh, let's start over here if that's okay.
Sure. I was just thinking that we would just go around the gallery because I'm not talking about each of them specifically. Yeah,
Oh,
just
you
like
want me to
walking
just
as a, yeah,
Okay,
if that's okay.
you can introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, I'm Grace Brierley, and this is my thesis body of work, Estranged Familiar. I kind of went into this body of work wanting to address how I felt that being in public and kind of the interpersonal conversations, it's felt different these past couple of years. It's felt a lot more dissonant, and I wanted to say something about that. But I also noticed that at the same time, I think we all kind of know that the phones are the problem. And I just wanted to create a body of work that didn't explicitly state that, something that was accessible and a little bit more humorous. I wanted to employ a little bit of funky because I think that kind of makes it just a little bit easier to jump into and easy to enjoy looking at without maybe having the burden of like, oh boy, our social lives and social spheres are kind of just like shifting. So this was the first piece that I did in my thesis. And this was kind of born from, you know, when you're at the checkout line and like you're waiting for your mom to get back with the credit card and you're kind of like stuck with like the cashier and like you don't know what to say. And it's like a very rehearsed kind of conversation. It doesn't feel real and it just is really awkward for everybody involved. And throwing a giant strawberry in there just seemed like the right thing to do. But this piece definitely kind of sparked my interest in these figures, these creatures. I've always been very interested in creating caricatures and kind of portraying them with a personality that, you know, I don't know, like Orange Guy's in all of these paintings, as I'm sure you're all aware, but he doesn't really have a personality to me. And I think that instead of depicting people, I noticed that people kind of feel a little bit more empathetic towards a creature or an animal. So I kind of wanted it to be a little bit more accessible for empathy in that way. And to address the elephant in the room, why all of the big objects? Well, they kind of are supposed to be the elephant in the room. So how I think about it is that phones have become such just an accepted accessory everywhere we go that it feels as though it could be a martini in a bar or a spoon in a diner. It just belongs there. And so that's kind of the theory behind the spatial differences. It also kind of creates this dissonance. You know what I mean? It doesn't look right, doesn't feel right, because it's not right. Go with this one. What sparked a lot of this was my psychology course load, and especially social psychology. And I kind of learned how we navigate the world psychologically and the heuristics that we think about, and how we are quick to judge people or assume the person going really slow in front of us on the highway is like the worst person in the world. So I kind of wanted to imply sort of like a psychological curiosity in my thesis, and I wanted people to be a little confused because it is a little confusing. So yeah, and I hope everyone like goes up and looks at the details because I think they're super cool, and I enjoy the mostly beef sign because it's mostly beef. Yeah. And I work in oil. So that in and of itself is a very just like slow process. You have to be very careful with it, very intentional with it, and you get frustrated really easily. At least I get frustrated very easily, especially with a lot of solid blocking colors and a lot of just solid line work in these works. But I think that it kind of attributes to how frustrating it can be to kind of just be in a room and everyone else is on their phones, and you kind of feel that like, oh, should I be on my phone? You know, like, is this supposed to be what socialization is now? And then for my final piece, sorry, excuse me, I wanted one of the pieces to have a phone explicitly depicted, just as like a capstone, as the answer, as kind of just a way to kind of understand what's going on here without reading an artist statement or without me telling you. But since I'm here and you're here, I'm spilling the beans. But yeah, I had a lot of fun doing this, this thesis, a lot of rough times, as I think we can all kind of attest to. So thank you for being here with me, and Lexie and Cleo and sharing.
Hello, is it on? Okay. Hello, I am Lexie, and I am talking about my thesis titled Are You In? It is an all mid-fire ceramic show. Just to start out, I think that I was having a lot of trouble with this show because traditionally I'm a more functional potter, and trying to think about like this larger concept within pottery for me has always been a struggle. And I was really exploring different methods of how to shape pottery, which is entirely new to me. I was very excited to explore all the different methods that I have on display. And so for the idea of the show, it is talking about how my experience growing up as a woman has been kind of like this ritual and initiation practice. And I feel like a lot of women can also relate to how society has kind of molded us to be similar. And also the expectations of how you dress or how you do your hair have really just kind of shaped the person I am today. My personal kind of inferences with this idea is my mother did hair a lot as a child. And so a lot of my like fears and anxieties about like how I look come from just kind of how I grew up, but I can go through each piece with everybody. Start out with this one. Or I mean the little guy over there. Sorry. So if you come to my show, I have printed out a pamphlet. All these pamphlets have each title within them, and it's a nice guide to, you know, view the show. Let's see. So this one is titled Adolescence, and this was the first piece that I had created, which is kind of, you know, how the ideas started. Like as I was creating the works, the ideas kind of came to me of how I wanted each stage to look. And this is supposed to illustrate the feelings and emotions of being a child, not influenced by society and media's opinion of beauty. She is perfectly complacent as she is. I was very excited to create this piece. I had done a lot of just kind of imagining and like feeling how I wanted the piece to be. None of these had drawings before, so as I was creating the work, I had no plan. But I had been taking an abstraction course this past semester. And I think that really opened my eyes to taking away from less figurative work and just kind of exploring how I wanted compositions to look and different feelings. These are all made with underglaze, which I find very reliable. The reason I chose a lot of mid-fire glazes and pottery is I feel like I have a lot of control and there's not variability. My background as a painter has kind of influenced a lot of how I chose to do these pieces and not rely on glazes as much, but the subtle colors and variations I was able to control. And yeah, we circle around to this one. I don't know where I'm going. This one was one of my favorite pieces and kind of made me really pumped up to finish the rest of the work. This one is titled Angst. It is my most elaborate piece. It well describes my complicated feelings that girls feel as preteens. Girls are told to maintain a certain weight, wear makeup, and practice consumerism to fit into the mold society has shaped for them. The aesthetic look of confusion and conflicting design show in this piece by methods of water etching, spraying, and underglaze. The colors are now shifting from bright to angsty. For me, I visualize a lot of angst as like tiger stripes. I don't know why. Cats were also very important to me growing up, so I want to incorporate some like kind of darker tones as well as you're still kind of whimsical and excited about growing up, but there's some decisions that are being made that kind of separate you from other girls your age, and now you're trying to decide who you are as a person. My decision with the handles, I think, came from, like I said, my experience of being more of a functional potter. I find it interesting having handles on things that don't have a functional use. And this was, I think this was the first piece I put feet on, and I wanted the pieces to feel like they were kind of growing and changing and they were alive, which is different than like a trimmed on foot. So yeah, and then they also all have gold luster on them and imagery of scissors, which again correlates to my experience of growing up with like a beautician as a mother. And you're also starting to like cut your hair and choose your personal style. So I wanted that to be incorporated in there as well. Okay, go to that one. We're all arranged weird. Okay, and this one's titled Angst, or no, it's titled Rite of Passage, and it's the feeling of frustration of becoming a teenager. It's a lot more organic and representative of teenage years because it's very moldable. Your teenage years, a lot of things happen in your life, and it kind of shapes you into the person you become. Again, I wanted to incorporate my tiger stripes all around. I think this one I was really excited about because I had used a lot of slip trailing in the design work, which I hadn't chosen to do before. And there's cycles of the moon on there to represent kind of how women start to have their menstrual cycle in their teenage years. So yeah, and just the colors, they're a lot more dark and bright, and it's like very not tame. So, and then this piece, we could just like pan it to have. That piece is in bloom, which is like my kind of the final stage, but it's the least organic shape, I feel, and it kind of represents a woman in their final form and like decided. It's very grounded, which, you know, it carries this atmosphere of assurance that I really enjoyed. There's butterflies on that piece and this piece that kind of represent just like, you know, as you were in your adolescence, there's butterflies on that one. You just kind of decide who you are and you're not anxious about becoming someone else. And then with this piece, that one's titled Growth Spurt, which I feel like is most descriptive of who I am now. I'm still not totally perfect, but I am kind of becoming a woman. The metamorphosis with the butterflies also was the symbolism of that was very important to me. I had originally thought that I would have more flower motifs or like more bugs that changed from one form into an entirely new form. But I found that butterflies were it was just a great motif that everybody would recognize and understand. So all these pieces also have opalescence on them, which is a very fun material or very fun material to put over pottery, and I enjoy the aesthetic quality that it gives all the pieces. I had my father build all of these wood pedestals, which was a monumental task, and he was super, super awesome. And while I designed them, he did all the hard work, and I'm very grateful for him. When installing all the pieces, I was in between painting them all white or leaving them the wood that they are. And I had a lot of mentors come in and friends come in, and they're saying like, oh, that wood's very beautiful. And so I think the pieces kind of changed in the space for me, because I always imagined them a certain way, but now they're different. And I really enjoy how the pedestals came out, and I'm very proud of this work. So thank you.
I'm gonna unmute both of them. You guys can share.
Okay.
Yours is muted, so you know.
Grace, for all the different symbols in your work, were those premeditated, or did they kind of just like come as you were doing it, or was it both?
I think it was like a mix. Mostly for that one, I think that one has most of the symbols I think that you're talking about. That definitely came as I was painting. Those were the last thing to be added. And I wanted to employ a little bit of critique on everything else in the world and what I was thinking, other than just my thesis. So I think that kind of gave me freedom to kind of break outside the mold I had put myself in for this project.
Lexie, when you were like making your forms, were you like thinking like, oh, right now I'm gonna make adolescents, or did it sort of just like you made it and it felt right to do that one? Like, I'm just curious about how the names and like the rules came to be.
I think it was when I was creating them, I kind of decided, oh, this is going to be more plump. So I need to think about how like I want each stage to look. So I think as I was literally throwing it, I kind of made that decision where I'm like, oh, this is going to be tall or this is going to be short. And then I kind of inferred my decisions off of that. But yeah, I kind of went in like just hoping it went well and then kind of deciding a place for them all. But thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of pink and blue in your work. Is there a particular reason why you chose those colors?
Not exactly, but I've always been super drawn to color. This has been a thing since forever. So, I mean, pink, I just feel like is so electric and expressive. And I think especially, I do all of my underpaintings. I do all of my underpaintings in like a bright pink. So I think it's just a way to really illuminate a space. And lighting is also very important to me. And I think that kind of informs all of the lighting that I have in my pieces. But, yeah.
Is that a question for Cleo and Kurtis? Both of your guys' canvases seem like a similar size, and I know you work in the same space. Did that just happen naturally?
I don't think we ever talked about that.
Never talked about
No. I mean, I bought a bunch of canvases before I started the project, and I think you did as well.
I had that one
Yeah.
in like my studio, and then I was like, well, guess they all have to do this size now.
Yep.
We went with it. So.
Coincidence.
On the ones over here, did you use, like these specifically, did you use pink as another painting and then do black gesso as a fill-in, or start with black and come up with the color?
I color block all of them, so I start out with like the brightest pink you can possibly imagine. It hurts to look at after a while. And then I go in with like my darkest darks and then work up. Yeah.
They're just like my burden. I was thinking about doing like a price, like a silent auction, but also I think I'd like to show these at a gallery in my hometown. So maybe there I'll do an auction. But yeah, no, all my pottery just kind of sits in a box for a while and then something happens to them. But
Well, how do you, of course, like after making the work, you know the question, right? Making the work in your studio and then installing it, there were some choices, right? Like Cleo, you chose to put the two outside paintings together, inside ones here. And Grace, you did, you know, like the singled out couple and, you know, and then Lexie, I know you always had planned with the circular, but I'm sure you had some new decisions to make once you came into the space. And then were there any surprises with how you thought your work would look in the space together and how it ultimately does look in the space together?
For me, I mean, the different canvas sizes was originally my worst fear because I originally made the wolf one over there second, and just as an experimentation, it wasn't supposed to be in the show. They were all supposed to be that size. And then I quickly realized that was a huge mistake, and I should have made them all the same size because I don't have time for another one. But it kind of worked out really well in this space specifically. But as far as all of them go, I was really pleased to see how well they went together. I feel like they all mesh really well. And yeah, I feel like especially the ceramic in the middle really ties it all together, which I was very excited by.
Yeah, I'm kind of coming from the same vein. I think that like we work in the same studio, so we see each other's work, but it's so much different seeing it on the gallery wall, in the spaces, and also with Lexie's work is kind of like this centerpiece that, you know, keeps everybody revolving around. I think it was just so rewarding to see all of our work together, and even more rewarding to see how well it complements each other.
yeah, I think like when we were trying to like, I don't know, because I was still pretty undecided on what I was going to actually do when we all got into a group. But I knew like our aesthetics were very similar. We're all like very bright, colorful people and art styles. And I think that the space being smaller also kind of dictated a lot where like, you know, I was going to be in the center, but I'm really happy that happened. I think that the pieces kind of infer each other. And like, especially if you have the guide in your hand, it's nice to be able to like walk around, and it's almost like the like exhibitions where you put like earbuds in, you just kind of like read something and like listen and you walk. So but yeah, I think that it all like really turned out well, and I'm super grateful for them to help me light. That was a new thing for me. I've never done that before. But yeah, I think that it turned out very, very well. Super nice.
Yeah, the colors are kind of a pleasant surprise. You know, seeing them together. Like I've seen pieces of yours, all of yours, but then seeing them all together is a really nice palette that's happening across all of them. Document. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my name is Kurtis Miller, and this is my exhibition. And before I start explaining the images and stuff like that, I just wanted to start with my why and what motivated me to, choose the work that you guys are seeing up here. And I wanted to start with just saying that it's been a blessing and a pleasure to be in the position that I am and be in school in general. I'll be the first in my family to graduate at a university. And at first, I wasn't really thinking about it. I didn't think of it being like a big deal and stuff like that until, I started experiencing it a little bit more and, having those conversations with my family and stuff like that. And I'm always telling me how they're proud of me and stuff like that. So that's what kept me going. And as far as my work, I started as a major that, was a little tough for me. And, it was really close, like really, really close to quitting and just, giving up and just going back home and trying to find a job or whatever the case may be. But, being able to have that support system and being able to be blessed and realize that, I have a talent behind the lens, that's what kept me going. And that's why you guys see me here today. And I wanted to start with my two images with my two grandparents. The picture on the left is my Nana and the picture on the right is my grandpa. It's a great guy. I'm wearing the same, sweater that he has on in this one. And what was whenever I was thinking about what I wanted to do for this, I wanted to switch it up and be like, should I go in a different direction with my photography, or should I just throw them all together? And I felt like throwing them all together with the portrait photography and the sports photography would just be me, instead of just going in one direction and just, keeping it there, because I'm not one person that likes just doing one thing. I like doing multiple. So being able to get my Nana to position herself and, pose and stuff like that, I never really seen her smile as much as what she was smiling whenever I was doing it. So it was just pretty cool connecting with my grandparents on a deeper level. And, being older and stuff like that, you have certain conversations that you may not have had whenever you was younger. And it was just cool just experiencing that and hearing how their stories and how they persevered through life and how, they keep going even in their older ages and stuff like that. And, what they're trying to accomplish, even, being, elderly and stuff like that. My grandpa is I always call him a soldier because he never, he never stops. I think he's 73, and you'll never see him inside the house doing something that, doesn't require effort, energy, and just, the willingness to do it. And he's been the backbone of my whole entire life. I live with him. I still live with him whenever I go back home. And just seeing all the work that he does, it's never taken for granted for me personally, because he doesn't have to do anything that he does. And I felt like it was only right to incorporate my two grandparents in my exhibition, because, they've been a huge role into who I am today. And as far as my self-portrait right here, I wanted the experience with taking my own pictures and stuff like that, because I thought it would be pretty cool. I thought it would be kind of like a skill that I can say I have. And this was the first time me doing it. And the second and third time that I tried it and, I got the images and stuff like that, I just felt like it was better to display the one that was the first and, the original and how I first started out. And I'm really intentional with my shots. I don't like, at first when I first started, I was more on like just clicking a button and just seeing whatever comes out. But whenever I took this one, I wanted everything to be intentional with my grandma's name being tatted on my wrist. She's no longer here, so it was pretty intentional for me to get her name right there, even though you can't really see it, letter by letter. But me, I know exactly what's there, and I know that if she was still here, she'd be really proud of me, and she'd be able to, give me a big hug and make me my favorite food, and that's the tuna noodle that she would make. And whenever we're transferring it over to the sports photography, each sport is something that I experienced myself, and boxing is something that I've actually just recently got into. It was, I don't ever plan on competing and stuff like that. It's just more on just trying new things. And anybody who is boxing, I don't know if there's anybody who's liked the sport or done it at all, but you learn a lot about yourself. You know, you learn about those hidden dark clouds that you have in your head, you know, because in my opinion, 90% of boxing is what's going on up here in your head, and that transfer into life. You know, I feel like once you master the battle up here in your brain and your mind, you know, you'll be able to basically achieve whatever you want in life. And I feel like with all the, you know, experiences in my life, it's nothing but, you know, a fight in life. And this image right here, and the boxer's name is Rizemian, and he's somebody who gave me the opportunity to capture his, you know, last 3 fights. But I like this image the most out of all of the ones that I have, because I'm a person who believes in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and I felt like it was just perfect to capture this shot, because it's just silence being, you know, it's silence being around whenever they're preparing for a fight, and it's silence whenever they're trying to get in a certain mode to go out there and compete and stuff like that. And just, I tried to put myself in their position to where it's like, what would I be thinking? What would I be doing? What would I be, you know, trying to basically just the whole thought process and everything. I try to put myself in their position, and it helps me as a photographer capture those moments that I feel like would be important to the person I'm shooting, and obviously the audience too. And this image right here was just something I was just moving around. I never stay in one place whenever I'm shooting. I always try to move around in different angles. And I felt like this image right here was, you know, pretty cool, because in sports, if you start out a little cold, you know, things aren't clicking, you're pretty quiet. You're not as like, you know, outgoing and stuff like that vocally. And I felt like getting him with sweat, water going down his back, and his coach, Marquise, in the background, giving him the pep talk that he needs to get going. I feel like all of these are just me documenting certain moments that I know that the person that is in the picture will be able to go back and be like, I remember this exact moment. I remember my thought process. I remember what was going on and all of that. So everything is intentional. And we go over to the basketball side. I practiced with the women's basketball team here at OU, and I was able to shoot the sports here too. And this player right here is Bailey, and she plays, I don't know if anybody watches women's basketball sports here, but Bailey plays with a lot of emotion. And I know that whenever she saw this picture of herself, she was, you know, she really liked it, because this kind of just explains her. And whenever I would play sports, I would want, you know, these moments right here to where you get a basket and it counts as an M1, you show a lot of emotion. And I feel like a lot of emotion transpire, and not just sports and anything that you do. A lot of people, when you really care about something, it shows. And I'm blessed to where I'm able to capture it on the lens. And this image right here is back in my hometown in Massillon, where before the competition starts and before, you know, things start going, you have a moment of silence to yourself, and you know, most people pray, most people have that conversation with themselves on what they want to do and what they want, you know, to leave out there on the field or on the court or whatever the case may be. And I remember being in this exact, you know, situation, and I feel like capturing those moments are definitely important, because it allows the viewers, it allows the athlete to, again, sit with the image and think of, you know, what they were doing in that exact moment. And this image right here in the middle is more of where being more conceptual comes into play. My classes with Cassidy, my photography classes, my advanced photography classes, you know, she always motivated me to see beyond just what was going on the court or on the field or wherever I'm taking pictures at. She motivated me to see beyond and be more of a visionary while I'm taking pictures. And when I was thinking of this image right here, I was just, guy was blocking the sun, and I knew that whenever I went to edit it, I knew that it would look pretty cool, but I didn't think it would look like that. That to me is probably one of my favorite pictures out of all of the ones that I have up here. And, you know, it was pretty cool being able to experience all the experiences that I had on the football field. And the last image right here is, I really shouldn't have this picture up, because back at home, you know, that the person that's in that jersey, he's at the school that is like a big rivalry back at home. So I just thought it was pretty cool to be able to get him yelling, you get, this kind of like the little specks of the spit coming out of his mouth and stuff like that. I felt like it was very detailed. And this was one of the most important games that I ever shot before, because it was like a movie. It was like something that would never be forgot. Everybody that was there would never be, they'll never forget that game. And I feel like that goes to showing all of my work. It's something that you'll always be able to come back to and just look back and just admire, and also just be able to, enjoy it. And something that I debated myself on was whether or not I wanted my images to be in frames or no frames. But I feel like I really like how they came out, or how I have them up right there. I feel like the frames probably could have took away from the images a little bit. But outside of that, I feel like everything turned out how I wanted them to, and how I want my viewers to sit with. I just want my viewers to sit with my work, whether they like it, whether they don't like it, whether they, want to give me money and buy a picture, or whatever the case may be. I feel like I just want them to just admire and just sit there and maybe feel like they were actually there whenever I took the picture. And it's not really much that I want from the viewers, but other than that, and there was something that I wanted to read. Picking up a camera gave me a different way to see my life. It gave me purpose. It gave me something to build through photography. I found a language that felt honest. I found a way to say things that are hard to explain out loud. I also believe with my heart that my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ gave me the strength and direction to keep pushing. There were times when I felt lost, but I never truly felt abandoned. My faith gave me the belief that there was still a way forward, even when I could not fully see it yet. Photography became a part of that path. That's all I got. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alyssa Sheets, and this is my BFA exhibition called Face Values. I was born with a cleft lip, and so that's why all of them are self-portraits. It was pretty integral for me to paint myself so much, because I obviously live with myself every day. I look at myself every day, but I really didn't work through all of the the mental load that came with always being at the hospital, always preparing for another surgery, essentially. I had about 10 surgeries on my lip and my nose, very intense braces at the age of 10. So it just led to a lot of insecurity, I guess, and I didn't look like everybody else I grew up with, which is typical in settings, but I don't know. So I visited the hospital a lot when I was younger for appointments, and that happened at the Rainbow Babies hospital in Cleveland, Ohio. And it was a very colorful hospital, and I think I got a lot of my inspiration for the color palette from that hospital and the playfulness. There's a lot of areas that I still think about, just walking through as a little kid. There was a lot of comments from older doctors, and especially men doctors, oh, you're going to be able to cover it up. When you're older, nobody's going to be able to tell. And that's kind of what I didn't want to portray with this series. Every piece is a little bit of my insecurity, a different angle of my face that I'm insecure about. And there's a little bit of ornamentation, color that I tried to portray through that. This one is my most recent one, and I adjusted the colors so it would be more interesting to look at. One way that I was able to kind of reclaim the insecurity is using photography to just practice being comfortable with myself. And another way was piercing. So I have a lot of face piercings, which my doctors would be very upset if they saw, because they're like, oh, my work is ruined. But it makes me feel a lot better in my day-to-day life just to have a little bit of decoration on my face. So I wanted to make a painting with that. This is the one that started my series, and I really was just playing around with for another school project a couple years ago, and I took this photo, and then I was like, maybe I can do something with this. And yeah, it just, I just wanted to make some weird, not necessarily weird, but things that are not normal, because I never felt like I looked exactly normal. So yeah. This is my second most recent one. One of my favorite artists for the past few years has been Cindy Sherman, and I took a lot of her photography kind of like inspiration. She just does a lot of candid shots and also like staged with different costumes on. Some of them are a little bit offensive. I don't agree with that. But the other ones, I really do appreciate her work. So just using color and all that kind of stuff to kind of highlight my insecurities, and yeah. It's still like a work in progress. I really do. I have things to say about it. It's still a process for me, like working through all of it and like being able to talk about myself and like all of, I don't know, just like feeling kind of like a guinea pig my whole life, and just not, there's a lot of self-confidence work that I've had to do to be able to paint myself like this. Challenges that I faced for this, obviously looking at myself all the time, spending all of my time by myself, but that's typical for artists. We're always in our studio. I originally was not going to hang them in this order. It was going to be the one on the left, this one, and then the flowers. But that when I hung it up in the gallery, it did not look right. It didn't serve the pieces how I wanted them to. So that was like a big a roadblock for me, but my classmates helped me a lot figuring that out. I wanted to highlight the lip a lot. I think I could have done a little bit better job, but that's why there's like a dent in the lip and a little bit more shading. And this was my Halloween costume this year, and I thought it would fit well because it's really like a mask that you have to put on. And yeah, the most important like thing I want people to take away from this is just highlighting insecurity and just like, sorry.
Take your time.
It was definitely a series that I wanted to make for myself and to just grow my technique and my personal growth. Yeah. Thank you.
So sorry. I'm probably gonna start over here, if that's okay. Hi, as most of you know, I'm Kelli. This is my senior thesis exhibition called Majoring Motherhood. And when I first started this project, honestly, I was coping with my new identity as a mother. Like, your body changes, your mind changes. They even have like specific mental illnesses with postpartum. And most people don't know, but your body doesn't even go back from postpartum until a year after. Your mind doesn't even go back after postpartum until 3 years, which hasn't even fully hit me, to be honest. And this is all my day to day as you look down the line. I really wanted to showcase how my identity was changing when I came to school and when I went home, because I felt like when I came here, I was somebody completely different. I was coping with who I was and all of these new changes. And I was by myself for the first time because I had taken a year off from school and spent it at home with my son. So that brought a lot of anxiety and honestly a lot of anger, just being separate from him. Because for the first 21 years of my life, I was just Kelli. And for the last 2 years of my life, I have been Kelli and Grayson. And when I tell people I'm a mother, I think sometimes it comes with the pre-notion, like you think of your own mothers, you think of your grandmothers, you think of every woman, and not even woman, you think of your dad, you think of your grandma, you think of your aunt, you think of anyone in a parental space. But it doesn't fully encompass the challenges that come with that. So I wanted to portray the domestic space where I felt like I was really struggling, because as you walk through my day, I can start on this one. Obviously, I'm exhausted. Okay, this is 4 a.m., 4:36 to be exact. And, you know, I'm sure you can all relate to this scene. You've been staying up after homework. However, I can tell you by 5 a.m. I was awake and I was getting started with my day. And as you go into the next speech, which is 7:04, this is probably about 10 minutes after he wakes up. Because when he wakes up, the first thing he says to me is eat. And I'm like, yeah, I want to eat when I wake up too. Blood sugar has probably definitely dropped. So, you know, you can imagine what I'm thinking, but for me, I'm his stability at home. So what I'm feeling in this space has to be put on hold for moments like this, or further down when I'm doing the laundry. You know, if I'm thinking badly about myself or speaking badly about myself, he will in turn speak badly about himself. So it was just a huge difference in going to school and coming home and dealing with these things. And I also wanted to portray these spaces, for example, this space. This piece was my very first piece. And honestly, it brought me a lot of anxiety because I was starting to face these new realities. I'm sure we all are at 20. You have new responsibilities. You have things you have to do. No one's going to do them for you. But this was an added layer for me because now I have to take care of someone else and I have to be the best version of myself. And if I slip up, how will that affect him? And maybe to us, it's very small. But I think it's so often when we get older, we can look back at our parents and think, well, they could have done this better. They could have done that better. And I think the weight of just my changing personality and those thoughts really took over as I was painting these paintings. In like very intimate spaces. I think this one was definitely also a very intimate piece for me, and probably not the way you're thinking, because you're like, she's on the toilet. But for me, it was intimate in the way that, you know, for the first 20 years of your life, you want to be wanted and you want to be accepted and you want to be seen as who you are. And now I have this entire being that really wants to be with me all the time. And at first you're like, oh, that's great, I've got a buddy. But then you come into spaces like this and you're like, well, this could be private, but I guess we can all join in. Like, that's okay. And especially like, I talked a little bit about this one, so let's go ahead and go to this one. But especially an intimate space for him, you know, I think this was kind of also a hard piece. I had to definitely talk to my husband about it and ask if it was okay to portray him in this light, because I feel like kids are definitely really exploited these days. They're shown way too much. But we worked through it. We figured out how to strategically place everything. And really, it's just, this piece is about connection and connection to my new self and connection to my former self. And I hope that this work really invokes you to ask about other people's day and take them seriously and feel serious about them, because if we don't know about each other, there is absolutely no connection. And then this piece right here will actually be happening during my show. I think only really the painting department knew about this, because it came in the last second, because I was like, wait, this is not going to do justice that I wanted to. So during my thesis exhibition, gallery opening, he will be here and he'll be interacting with it. So You can say hi. He will definitely say hi, probably way too many times. And it's also scary to bring your child into a space like that because you're like, well, they can touch other people's things. But I can guarantee you he's definitely going to be in this space and probably asking for snacks at the snack table. But I felt like this was the best way to really show you and way. And I have to be like, okay. So really just showing the domestic space and then bringing him into this gallery space. It was all very intentional. And I even set up some of his toys how he had them when he left them last, which you're probably like, Kelly, it kind of looks a little staged. But he's in this mood of like gathering things into one pile. That's how it has to be. But yes, so I hope you come to my opening and I hope he interacts with you and don't let him talk you into giving him a cupcake. You might have to check if this one's on. This is a very harsh light. I want to go over here. It's very specific, but
Kelli and Alyssa, did you guys all use, like, for your paintings, did you use reference photos or just go about, like did you review
For me, I use reference photos. I usually have like a photo shoot by myself, or if I can get help, in my room, I guess. And then I use a reference photo, yeah.
so I do use a reference photo, but it's kind of tricky with a moving person. Some of them, like the one where I'm rocking him, that was actually a video. I took a snapshot from the video to use as a reference. And honestly, having to go through your entire day is like, you have to think. I had to plan all of these out. I like wrote down my entire day on how it normally goes in order. So yes, I did use a reference photo. It was just kind of complicated to get them.
Kurtis, why did you choose to do black and white, not colored?
Well, because I was thinking about black or white or the sepia tone. The sepia tone is what's up there, and no, you're good. And I don't know. I felt like it would be too many. I don't know. A lot of the places I was shooting where the lights were a lot different, so my editing styles were a lot different too. So I just felt like they would all tell the same story that I wanted them to, being in one tone, and that's the sepia tone.
Kurtis, how'd you go about picking the photos that you wanted to display?
Yeah, that was to me the hardest part, because it's a lot of I have a whole bunch of pictures and stuff like that. I've shot a lot of events. I shot a lot of things. I do a lot of commercial photography, so I didn't know if I wanted to put that up there, or if I did. I didn't know what I wanted to do. But the more I talked with Courtney, the more I talked with Cassie, the more I talked with everybody, and the advice I asked for, it just a lot of the information would just go with what I wanted the best. And these, I feel like I can tell my story that I wanted to the best, because they all are going to be similar. They're all going to be similar than the ones that I could have chose, other than the ones that are up there. So if that answers it right.
Kurtis, during editing, was there like a point where you had to be like, I'm not doing landscape photos, or was that like from the get-go, like I know I'm doing portrait?
I've never been a landscape type of photographer, even though I think that's literally how I started. I started off on my iPhone 13, just taking pictures of leaves or taking pictures in the woods and stuff like that.
Specifically the like orientation, everything's vertical.
Oh,
You
oh
just
yeah.
said the orientation.
Yeah, no, that's how I shoot. All my photos are vertical and stuff like that. It's very rare that I shoot other than being vertical, but yeah.
I have a question for all of you. Since all of your work like holds some sort of, like you have a self-portrait of each of you, how does that change like how you feel people coming into this gallery space? Like, does that change your experience of your pieces at all?
It makes me want to cry personally because it's very intimate and I feel like I had to cope by the end of my paintings. But it's also one of those things where like I feel like we all had a similar instance that I portrayed. So I wanted it to be very raw and intimate and maybe think about your own spaces and places where you felt that intimacy too. So
I was honestly a little bit worried about having all portraits in one gallery because like it's not necessarily like we just wanted to paint or take photos of ourselves and like other people, but there is like kind of a stigma of, oh, you're like kind of self-centered if you like all of your work is about you. But I think that it came together very nicely and we all have like a different type of style. So it was, yeah, I think it worked out well.
Yeah, I was gonna say it just kind of goes into all of our portraits have like a story behind them, and my work, their work, I just think it works together pretty well because it's more than just what you're seeing. It's a whole bunch of stuff that's behind what we're displaying out here as the portraits being presented. So.
Alyssa, after you were done, because you said you were still going, but after you were done, did you feel like you had more questions than answers, or how?
100%. I honestly, none of it feels finished. I've worked and worked and worked and worked, and it's not the same as like, oh well, my makeup's done now, so I can go what I was gonna do. I don't feel like any of these are very finished. I feel like the series is not finished in a way, but I also don't want to do it anymore. I need a break. So did that answer?
Kurtis, do you plan on exploring different types of photography more, or just more focusing on commercial photography?
I mean, I'll venture out, but how I make like money that I do make with photography is commercial and stuff like that. But a lot of these images is just me doing things for free. But I'm more than likely, once I graduate and stuff like that, it's going to be 90% commercial photography. So yeah.
I would argue though that some of your framing and stuff is not. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think like even being in a gallery is commercial too. You know what I mean? Like the works for sale.
Yeah.
All of that. I really appreciate, and what's not captured in this video that we're sharing live streaming is the texture on all the work. But like your photography in particular, I just feel like the deep, warm darks are really so deep dark. They're not pixelated. There's some really nice texture, and like the focal points are very focused. But then those the backgrounds then start to become like these abstract paintings, and just like it's really beautiful.
Thank you.
As I've been asking everyone, you all have, the portrait aspects. How can you each sort of talk about how the work, how it functions in the gallery, how it changed, how it grew, how it was sort of frustrating or problematic, what choices you made or changes you made, once you saw the work in the space?
So whenever I came in, I mean, in Cassie's classes, we have to put our work up so it can be critiqued and stuff like that. So I was kind of used to seeing it up on like a wall, but whenever I was seeing it in here, it was just looking a little bit different. So I was like, I didn't know exactly how I wanted to have everything sorted and stuff like that. Like the way I was going to do it before, it was going to be a magnet on each corner of the photos. So I realized I didn't like it. So it was just kind of like trial and error. It was more like, I wanted to try it one way, and then I was like, I think I want to try it this way. So I was a little bit indecisive when I was doing it, but I'm happy on how it turned out because I don't know. I feel like it looks right. It looks like, if I would have just made my mind, this is how it would have turned out in the first place. But other than that, I feel like everything worked out how it was supposed to.
I talked a little bit earlier about how the order that I originally intended did not happen. All of them were supposed to be looking inwards, kind of like in a circle motion. But once I hung them up during install, I was not happy with how they looked just because of how the two most recent had turned out. It didn't fit with the original idea. So I like it a lot better now that they're pairs, like looking in at each other. Yeah, that was kind of my only struggle with install.
Also, what's your material?
Oil paint.
Medium. Okay. Your oil on canvas?
Yes.
Okay.
Honestly, I didn't have as big of a problem installing mine. I knew the order, like, obviously. And I did my mock-ups really well. I measured the center line of them ahead of time, and I measured where the nail holes went. And I had some people come in and help me. So we honestly got all my paintings up in like 45 minutes. It was crazy. We actually stopped like 20 minutes through, halfway done, to get food because I was like, okay, this is not taking as long as I need. There's no need for me to starve. And then it was interesting putting his items in this space. It was more just about my emotions putting his items in the space, just because, like, it's an extension of him, and I definitely have an attachment with some of the items. So having people interact with such intimate items to me was kind of hard. And also knowing that people are going to be walking up and viewing them very closely was a little nerve-wracking, but that's probably all I had.
And your material?
I had oil on canvas.
Oil on canvas.
Mm-hmm.
Anything any of you would change, or?
If I had to change anything, I would add more photos, and I would kind of like manipulate how they're, I think if I was going to do something, I feel like I would add more images, and I wouldn't just have them just in a straight line. I would kind of like put them kind of like one higher, one lower, one, I would kind of just experiment that way. But that would be the only thing that I would change, is the more images and how they're lined up with each other.
I think the only thing that I would have changed is to have 2 more portraits. Originally, I wanted to have like 6 to 10 of them. It just didn't work out in the happenings of it. There's a bug crawling on one of my pieces.
Is there a bug on?
It is, yeah. That's funny.
I'm glad it wasn't on me because it was kind of above your head. It's okay.
It's a ladybug, it's all right.
During the questions.
There's like 50 of them in my studio, so it makes sense.
But yeah, I originally wanted some more portraits, but then looking at them in this space, I think that 3 on each wall would have been too cramped. So I think it worked out better.
Honestly, I don't think there's anything about mine I would have changed. Like, I would have liked one of the pieces to be a little more to my standard, but it also, I think, yes, just because I felt like there were parts of one that I really wanted to work on more that I just didn't get to, or I was kind of touching it up the last day. But I also just think that plays a role in it because it's about cramming everything I can into my day, and I was okay with it in the end, and to just not be as hard as on myself maybe as I was. But yeah.
Thank you.
Is it Amita?
Yeah, I think so. It's so weird that I can see myself. First, can everybody grab one of these? I want everybody to read them. Thank you.
Do you require reading?
Huh? Yeah, unfortunately, no, there's not going to be a quiz, but it just means a great deal to my work. Good. Okay, so this is my thesis, what we share. It's 2 sets of 2, separated in 2 different form or glazes of pottery. I created this because I wanted to show the connection between 2 people, how it is always attached. If you see somebody from kindergarten or like in your past life, you're always going to say hi, whether it's bad or good, you're still going to have that connection. And I feel like people just really need to talk about that and focus on that, because it's not a thing that is necessarily focused on very frequently. This is all cone 10 firing. It's yellow salt and then a custom brown glaze with gold leafing over top. I did come across a couple struggles when I was doing this. The glaze itself was a little bit streaky, so I decided to put some gold leafing over top, and I really enjoyed how it came out. Another big thing that relates to my thesis is the table, ironically. I got it off of Facebook Marketplace from this old couple that it was just the 2 of them, and it was kind of ironic that my thesis is about the connection of 2 people, and I got a table from 2 people that grew up, and it's an extremely antique table, and it's actually going to go in my living room. I love it so much. Sorry. I wanted to connect my pots to my time here at Ohio University. I focused a lot on the shapes and how it connects with your hands and how you hold it. And this shape itself has stuck with me throughout most of my career. And I just really enjoy it a lot. To be so honest, that's all I have. I can ask these questions. When I first started my thesis, I wanted to do something fun and just out there, but I think I was mostly just scared of doing what actually meant a lot to me. I started with making a giant tea set because I used to collect miniature tea sets when I was a child, but I wanted to focus on something more serious, especially as my final thesis show and everything. And I just think it has a lot of meaning behind it.
So I'm Madison, and this is my show, Disruptions. At the core of my thesis is this idea of confronting discomfort in order to experience the good that life has to offer. At the beginning of this year, this academic year, I was really struggling with my mental health, and it was really preventing me from participating in the things that I enjoyed, and also just basic things like eating, sleeping, studying. And it got to the point that I thought that I might have to not finish my senior year so I could focus on my mental health. But then a few weeks into fall semester, I was invited last minute by someone who had a spare ticket to see my favorite artist in Pittsburgh. And even though I was anxious and exhausted and having trouble doing the things that I enjoyed and participating in things like that, I decided that I really needed to go. And it ended up being one of the best moments of my life. And that night on the way back from Pittsburgh to Athens, we passed by these large expanses of industrial parks and power lines and like electrical towers. And the coldness and like overwhelming scale of these structures really reminded me of the struggles that I was dealing with my mental health. And shortly after this, I saw a video of a nuclear cooling tower demolition, and the imagery really stuck with me. And the sort of destruction of these structures is what I focused on in my thesis. You can see in this diptych, Cower and Overcome. It's holograph, and as well as the series of lithographs titled The Tree on the Hill. And the demolition of these structures reminded me of the transience and impermanence of these things that, even though they feel concrete and big and scary, they're not permanent, and neither was the situation that I was dealing with. And so, yeah, that's the imagery that I decided to focus on for my thesis. And I think everyone has things in their life that make them uncomfortable or are holding them back, that maybe they're avoiding. And I think it's important to confront these things and deal with them so that you can move on to better things in your life, which is what I welcome the audience and all of you to do in these books. There is a dark and a light book, one for writing about maybe your own intrusive thoughts, bad habits you want to break, things you've been avoiding in your life, and then one for writing about the good things that get you through the dark times, the people that you love, experiences that you've had, anything like that. So yeah, that's my show.
Hi, my name is Craig, and this is my mixed media installation titled Little Things.
So all throughout my senior year, I've struggled basically with just time management and organization and honestly what to do for my thesis in general. And it took a lot of time and a lot of advice and support from my classmates and my professors to throw this installation together that is a recreation of my studio space where I capture, romanticize the little things in day-to-day life. This space is supposed to serve and highlight the small moments of life, my life, anyone's life, walking around Athens, walking around Pittsburgh, just seeing an essentially people watching. And what better to do that and highlight all of those than in my own studio space. I want this to serve as a reminder and a direction for others to completely slow down their own lives because we're all busy in the day-to-day. We all have assignments. We all have things going on in our lives that don't let us slow down and really take in the moments that we in ourselves are experiencing. My memory and my attention to detail is highly shaped by a condition that I'm not even sure I have myself, which is ADHD. It lends itself to some destructive habits I have, as in time management, organization, and just how I interact with others on a day-to-day level. It has been hard, but I think having it all here now has just really shaped how I look at myself and how I look at my work in total. It less becomes an installation and more now of a personal archive with which I encourage others to just come in, slow down, take a look around, and treat the space not just as my own, but as theirs as well, because we all have a messy junk drawer in our house, or our houses. But thank you.
Show some of this installation.
I know, yeah, that's what I was wondering. Maybe, yeah, I think we can, I'll talk, we can do questions and then, yeah. Okay, hello, good evening. How we all doing? Okay. For those online, I'm Avary, or in person. Okay. So, where do I want to start? So, looking at the questions and that Courtney provided us, the first one was what drives this work? And I feel like I don't really have one specific answer because there's so many different things that I was thinking about with this piece and so many different things that I feel like it can say. But ultimately, we'll start from the very beginning. Ultimately, the idea for this piece started with wanting to make something that could appeal to all five senses. And then just like working through that and more, I was like, okay, what?
Describe the work because it's not in the gallery.
Oh.
The rest of these
Yes. Okay. No, that's okay. So my piece is a large scale interactive sculpture. It is outside. And it is 5 feet by 4 feet by 6'5" tall. It consists of a metal frame that me and my younger brother welded together over winter break at our house, and approximately 5,000 handmade ceramic beads that I killed myself over making last semester, and approximately also 5,000 yards of yarn. I think that encompasses it. Yeah, okay. So I wanted to make a piece that appealed to all 5 senses. And then I was like, okay, well, I don't really want people licking the beads or like anything. And like, how was I gonna make taste happen? And so then that kind of turned into just making an interactive piece, because in what I personally enjoy in art is an interactive piece and something that just really draws your eye in, and like something that I could look at for like hours on end and stuff. Like I specifically think of like Gothic architecture and stuff, and how like when you go back to it every time you can notice something new. And then with it being an interactive piece, that led to me needing to think about relationships that could be created. And I'll talk about it more later, but there's not really one relationship that I wanted to create with this piece. But and then it also is an exploration of my own practice, welding and working with metal, and then working with yarn and fibers, and then also working with ceramics are all things that I'm usually drawn to in my own practice. So I wanted to include all of them. I also just wanted another excuse to weld because it makes me feel like a badass. And then the big question, why is it outside? If any of my professors ask, it's conceptual. For you guys, it would not fit through the door. So that's another thing. And also, I don't really ever see myself having work in galleries. I mean, like, yeah, down the line, would I like to be a millionaire and have everyone want to buy my work? And like, yeah, sure. But no, but I like to make work for friends and family, and like, I make work as like gifts and stuff. And so that was another thing of like, I don't really think I want it in the gallery. And also with it being outside and just being in nature, I really felt that could just enhance things. And nature is like a big thing to me too. Like if I'm ever stressed and stuff, I know I'm like, okay, I need to go on a walk and I need to be outside and I need to be in the sun and all that good stuff. And I think it just being outside would allow the viewer to approach it with a clear mind. And I don't know, it just it felt better in my head to have it outside than to have it in the gallery. Materials that I used, I love welding, I love yarn, and I love clay. Kind of as simple as that. There wasn't really, like, I think I've gotten asked like why the colors of yarn that I used. It was just what Michael's had. I went in and I was like, oh my gosh, these are on sale and I like the colors, so I used them. Challenges. I think the biggest challenge with this piece was really just staying motivated to work on it, because I've been working on this piece for the last year, just with like thinking of the idea. Like I think I came up with the idea spring semester of junior year, and then actually physically working on it has been about the last 6 months. And that is like, I've never really worked that long on one singular piece before. So that was a struggle. The fact that I only have one singular piece for my thesis was also a struggle. And I was kind of like, well, because no one else is really doing that. And I was like, it has to be this amazing one singular piece, or like everyone's going to be like, why did you spend all this time? But so that was a struggle too. But staying motivated and pushing through being frustrated with it. And honest, I think the biggest struggle was the beads. It just like, it consumed so much of my life. And I remember like my friends started making jokes and stuff. Like if they would ask to hang out, like one would text, they'd be like, Avary can't, she's with her beads. Like it was like a joke that I was choosing my beads over my friends. And maybe I did, but that's a part of life. And as for install, it went way better than I thought it was going to. I made my brother help me, and he magically remembered 30 minutes into trying to install it, oh, my friend actually drives a truck. Okay, well, why didn't you say that in the first place? So it ended up being a lot easier, and we got it here, got it staked into the ground. I feel like most people probably know the struggle that I went through with getting it approved to go outside. I won't say my true thoughts on that because this is still a university, but just having it outside, like for midterm critiques, we took it outside and I was able to see like how it moved with the wind and stuff, and it wasn't fully finished in that moment, but it's still like that helped. But actually seeing it like outside on the grass, I feel like that made it feel real. And I really honestly had no idea what to expect with how it was going to look out in the grass, but very happy with how it turned out. And then the viewer's experience, like I said earlier, there isn't really one experience that I want the viewer to have. It's more of just like also this piece is titled Escape. So that was kind of like the thing of it. I just wanted the viewer to be able to escape from whatever they needed in their life, especially being on a college campus. I know so many of us deal with anxiety and just being overwhelmed or not feeling good enough, just, all of the above. And so I really just wanted to allow a space for the viewer to feel anything they needed to feel in that moment. And I think a really pivotal moment for me with this piece happened during one of my cohort's midterm critique. She like came outside after and was like, "Can I just sit in your piece for a second?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And she like sat in it for a minute and then like came to me afterwards and was like, "That helped me so much. Like, thank you for that." And I really think that just brought it all together, in the like, okay, I actually am doing what I want to do. And ultimately with this piece, I wanted to have a connection created between the viewer and just really hone in on the fact that art is a community and it is a way for people to come together. It's the way that I express myself. It's the way that I share who I am with others. And it's how I stay hopeful during whatever the hell it is that this world is going through right now. And so that's also another reason why I wanted it outside, that more people outside of the art world could connect with it and could see it. And yeah, I just think, as artists, we all have a duty to this world to share our art and to force people to look at it. And yeah, that was it. Thank you. Okay. Oh, yeah, Aaron.
I have a question for Maddie. Did you know that you were gonna install it like this? Like, this is just such a unique way to do it. It looks awesome. I'm just curious, like, the thought process you went through to decide to do it like this.
Yeah, so that was actually the first piece that I came up with for my show, and it was like the thing that I knew I wanted to be in the show from the beginning. I really am not a fan of like framing my work or anything, and chains specifically, I tie very closely with my OCD for a lot of reasons. And I just wanted to hang the pieces in a more unconventional way, especially since it's like a series of all of this like sort of same event. I wanted it to be a bit more interesting, and I also wanted to cater it to the space. I was originally gonna like hang them from those two sort of columns, but I couldn't drill into them. They're like solid as a rock. So they're hanging from the wall, but yeah.
I have a question for Avary. Because you have an outdoor installation, and I know this is something you've been planning on, there's rain on the radar. What are your thoughts on like how it's gonna weather and how it's gonna interact with?
I think I've just kind of come to a point where I'm like, it is what it is. And I as like some of the grads, they were like, oh, like get a tent. And I did not like that idea at all. So I was like, no. And I knew that was also probably going to cause a disruption of like, hey, why is there a tent here? I don't know. Why did you take 2 months? Anyways. No, yeah, I think it's just, it is what it is. You know, like the yarn is acrylic. I'm not really worried about it ruining anything. The beads are all fired. The metal is stainless steel. I think it'll just be wet, and that's okay.
I'm really curious about your choice to use Comic Sans in your artist statement. Especially since you said you're taking this piece seriously and like presented it in a serious way. It feels like it doesn't make sense.
No, I know. I played around with a bunch of different fonts, and that one just felt more like me. So I was like, yeah.
I have another question for Em. I want to hear you talk about why you chose the colors that you chose for the glazes. Because I think you've mentioned before like how impactful a certain glaze was for you. Yeah, just elaborate on that.
Yeah, so I originally was going to use Nick's Ash, which was my favorite glaze. Every person that's in ceramics knows about a cup. But I was originally going to use Nick's Ash, but unfortunately we did discontinue the ingredient for it. And there was a substitute, but I was like, if I'm going to do Nick's Ash, it's going to be the original Nick's Ash and not like something that I make and like something that could risk not looking exact. So I decided to use a different glaze instead.
I actually have a question for you. Do you want to talk about a little bit how you decided to move the whole studio into the space?
So the original plan was to have a collection of like 10 to 14 paintings, and just, I don't know, this year's been like the hardest, I think, of all the 4 I've had on this campus. But my classmates and my professor, Julie, she was, and they all were the biggest supporters in kind of problem solving for the space that I was showing in. And the 10 to 14 wasn't gonna cut it. So looking at just how I am and what I've experienced, kind of came to this conclusion of like, why not show the entire space where you're capturing these day-to-day moments? Make the day-to-day space the day-to-day moment that people can interact with.
Were the unfinished paintings intentionally unfinished?
Yes. I wanted to show process more than anything else, rather than try to kill myself over trying to get everything up to where I wanted it. I set very high expectations of myself, almost too high every time. And I think by showing the process, you can kind of see how things evolve, what sticks out most to you, whether it be the more unfinished pieces, the sketchiness, the looseness, or the more rendered, lighted pieces.
I really love that you didn't, like, I'm sure there were choices, right, like edits, but there's a lot that's like out in the open. Like there's a lot that you put yourself out, and I mean, I was so impressed with this piece when I came in, not seeing it over the weekend, and I just was like, it was like a delight to walk in to see this. But I love all the little discoverable pieces and like seeing little details that just pop out once you spend time with it. And I hope everybody else sort of gets that whenever they're coming through the gallery space too. Yeah, I think we talk so much about the finished work, right? Like, or put so much privilege on that finished work that, and we are all artists, that the process is seldomly celebrated. So showing that also is like a really fun piece of it. What else do you see? What else do you question?
How big is this studio in relation to the actual space at home?
It's actually pretty accurate. I took many reference photographs. The only difference between what's in the gallery and the original studio space itself was that there was a corner in the studio where my canvas is laid up against. So having them facing over towards my desk rather than having them straight out and on.
Any other surprises with installing in this space? Madison, you mentioned the columns being like too, solid to drill into. Avary has her own issues. Yeah, so were there any other surprises once you got in here, or pleasant surprises, or just disasters you had to work through, challenges?
My table didn't fit in the door. Well, I had to take apart that and it didn't fit in any car, so I actually had to carry it from my house here. $5. It's okay. I made my roommates help me, so it's fine. I have video proof of us carrying it. So. Oh, that would have been awesome. No, it was so funny because everybody kept like coming up and talking to us, and we had no idea who they were. Oh. But like we took the legs apart, so we drove the legs here, and then the top part we just carried here. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There was brakes involved.
Okay, well, we're gonna attempt to go outside and see Avary's piece. I'm gonna try to switch to If I lose our viewers online, apologies. I'm gonna just try to switch to my hotspot.
Does this need to stay like? Does it just need to? Art students and stuff will like come up and be like, oh my gosh, like, is this your piece? Like, can you walk, like, what's on? And will like talk to me about it. But then like everyone else walking by just dead stares and says nothing. And I'm like, guys, it's okay. You can come up to it. You want to like take it through? Yeah.
So we are inside Avery's sculpture. It is outside our tech.
Let's see how many people we can get fit inside.
All right.
Is it plain?
Getting in.
Yes.
One person with a
Only one person can fit. Oh wow, it's really in there.
Just one more. Yeah. A little jazz.
Oh.
I'll be good.
I know you have yours.
Well, I'm just trying to get the.
Seeing it fall in the wind is gonna let go. I really do want to. It is. I love the way it's given along the 5 senses. No, I give up on the 5 senses.
Guys,
It's like the candy that was.
people are like, oh, you look so good. Sticky and I'm so crazy. I should have been surprised.
A lot of people in there.
Why I have that is because I don't know, but I feel like water here, that was I'm not coming back.
What did you not like?
Yeah. No, I know because I literally Googled. I was, what is the forecast for Athens, Ohio on Thursday? Literally the only time it's going to rain is at 5 p.m. And that's the reception.
All right, we'll see you next week for our last BFA thesis exhibitions for 2026. Thank you all for joining. Bye.
And like looking at it